they tell about what they like and not only about work. It's not only
Oh,
about work.
remind me if I forget about that.
Ek minute. I think it has started. Wait, let me check.
Sure.
Oh, nice. I think it has started. We have started before time.
The live stream as well on YouTube.
Live stream has started on
Yay.
YouTube.
Nice. For once, people are gonna be happy that someone started. For oh man, that would have been fun. Okay.
Cool. Yeah, I think we are before time. I was just checking the setup and I accidentally went live. So, hello everyone. I hope all of you are doing great. And yeah, people are starting to join. So, we'll wait for a few minutes and then we'll get started with the session. So, it's going to be a very free-flowing session where we discuss things and we take questions from you. So, feel free to put your questions in the chat throughout the session and yeah, I think I will switch to the waiting state now.
Yeah.
मैं हम दोनों को म्यूट कर दिया अभी यूट्यूब के लिए.
This is cool, man. Yeah, are you like following the YouTube as well, like comments and all that shit?
हाँ वो मैंने खोला हुआ है.
I think I should also open it probably in a different window, muted. Can you send me the link? Actually, you sent me the link a while back. हाँ, याद आ गया.
हाँ तो वही वाला लिंक है लाइव का भी.
हाँ, found it. Yeah, are you like, sorry, that's following. Yeah, I can hear me on the video.
ऐसा है क्या? How is this happening?
Magic. People say Sahil is looking a lot like Karan today. Can people also see us?
I don't think so. अच्छा ये भी जाता है क्या? मेरे घर पे भी चल रहा है. सो मेरे को आवाज आ रही है वहां से. ओ we can hear you. How can you hear us? I have muted myself.
Hey folks,
Oh God.
now that you can hear us in the
It's a great start already.
yeah, it's good we did not crack any bad jokes. Would have
Yeah.
been very
Cold open. That is our cold open, everyone.
yeah.
Cool. So, yeah, hello everyone. I see quite a few people have started joining in. So, yeah, we'll just start in a few minutes, 1 or 2 minutes. I'll invite Sahil and then we can start discussing. If you have any questions before we start, please put them in the chat. Yes. So, great. How was that cold open? That was totally planned.
Right? It's crazy.
Yeah.
I love it.
I'll invite.
Sorry. Okay. I'm just trying to find now I can.
No controversial talk here, Divyanshu.
Yep.
Cool. All right. So I guess we have a few people joining in already. I'll just start, and then if people join in, then they'll just join in from the middle. Right. So hello everyone. My name is Karan Kapoor, and I'm a product designer. And today we are going to be talking about something which is discussed, but not a lot, which is that how do you get a business thinking in your process, and how do you do stakeholder management and just just come up with designs that have the business aspects to it as well, or are fitting to the business needs as well. So this is what we are going to discuss in the session. We are going to have Sahil with us, and he's a product designer at GoJek, and he does a lot of cool stuff. He's also in the chat. He is at the Creative Hustle on YouTube. He has a bunch of great videos, but he made a great video for an intro and then vanished. So we'll ask him that also. A few people asked me this question on Instagram, that ask him why did he stop making the videos. So a lot of questions, a lot of insights. We'll talk about our product stories and how we, you know, got to understand how to merge design and product, which we are not there yet. I am not there. Sahil is somewhat there. So let's hear from him. And yeah, without further ado, I'll just invite him, and yeah, he'll be talking about what he does and other things. Cool. So I'll just bring him on the screen. Hey Sahil, how are you doing?
Hey folks, what's up? I'm good. Thanks for having me here, Karan. That was a great intro. I think I have a lot of things to clear up. But yeah, I mean, really excited for this today, man. I mean, this has been so long in the plans. We wanted to do something like this, and it's finally happening. Really happy for that,
Yeah,
and also really excited for the new, what do you say, the new way of doing this as well.
yeah.
So, yep. And yeah, I mean, I'm probably going to start with I mean, Karan's already introduced me. Maybe I can elaborate a bit more on that. So, hello, everyone. I'm Sahil. I am a product designer. I have been, I'm a self taught designer, and I've been in this industry, I think, for the past 6-ish years. I think it's somewhere around that. And yeah, I've mostly learned design on the job, messing a lot of shit up, failing a lot. So it's been fun, and yeah, I think also through, similar to like you guys, medium articles, YouTube videos, people on the side. I think that's also been my source of learning, all the things that I've been able to learn so far. So that's it's been a very interesting, I think, journey so far. In general, I've been I think I yeah, I've worked in pretty much all the different kinds of companies I can think of, in terms of domains. So from hospitality to travel to now I'm working with a food business similar to what Swiggy does in India. And before that, it's been service industry, the service design industry as well, logistics. So yeah, I think covered the breadth majorly to sort of figure out where can I fit. What is it that really interests me? And I think over the period I've learned a bunch of things. Right now my focus is consumer centric products, because that's what I want to sort of learn more about, towards like more of human behavior, because that's where you get to really interact with the people that use your product. So I think that's what's on my mind. And other than that, I also have a YouTube channel uh, which I am not very active on. But yeah, I mean, I make videos sometimes. It's called the Creative Hustle. The idea of behind that YouTube channel was also to sort of share what I've learned so far in this journey, and help other people, get to probably the same level, or get an understanding of what is it that you can do better to scale up from wherever you are in your journey, or if you're just getting started, how do you start, like where do you start from? So I think yeah, that's mostly it. I think it's gonna cut my intro there.
Yeah.
And I hope you guys are okay, because we're both like looking in weird places and we're not looking at the screen.
Yeah, my camera is over here, and Sahil's camera is also somewhere
My
over
camera
here.
is here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's
So pretty elaborate setups only for YouTube lives. Yeah. So I think how both of us, I can say from my experiences, I started out trying to solve problems that people are facing in their careers in terms of visual design and in terms of tool knowledge. And I think you also started somewhere with that perspective. So pretty similar approach to sharing knowledge and sharing what we have learned. Yeah, so let's get to the today's session. So this is a very tricky topic, I think, that people are starting to address this now that they're realizing that how design impacts business, product, and other aspects. So the first thing I just want to start with is that I have seen this and I have learned it on the job, that product thinking and business thinking are some things that you have to constantly update yourself on, or talk to different people in the team and talk to different stakeholders. Otherwise you'll not get anywhere, and you'll not understand what is happening in the entire setup. So how do you just get started with it? How do you just get started with inculcating a business thinking in yourself? That's the first question that you can pick up.
Big questions to start with. Okay, that's a great question. I think first off, to start with, I think we should probably understand what do we even mean by like product thinking or business thinking, right? It's simply put it, it's pretty much how do you go about building a product, and what is the sort of strategy behind it? Like, why are you doing it? Is it to solve some kind of user problems? It's not something, I mean, obviously something we do in design as well, but from a more product perspective. And also keeping in mind, does it align with the overall goals of the organization? For example, you're trying to build a feature, or even a product by itself, like a whole product, and thinking of it in the way that is this going to meet my business's expectation? Or for example, if I have investors, does it meet their expectations? So I think that's majorly what we're going to talk about in terms of say business or product expectations, and like stakeholder management in general. Now the second part of this then sort of becomes, why is this important? Like, why does it matter at all, right?
Yeah.
Like, shouldn't we just do our job well, like design, which is what we're here to do? And isn't it already enough to be focusing on design itself? Why even reach out of this? So it all sort of boils down to the classic argument of, why don't designers get a seat at the table, right? I mean, if you really want a seat at the table, then this is the question that you should be asking more of, probably to yourself or other people in the company. What you need to sort of understand is, the bigger chops you have in a company, the bigger, the more authoritarian you are, or probably in a place where you're able to have that level of impact, that is when you transcend your role just sort of as a designer. You become a little bit more than that, right? Ideally, so this is where understanding like why should you do this comes in. As a product designer, you obviously do design. That's pretty much the due diligence for you, right? So it's nothing new. You're expected to do at least good product design. If you do that, that's great. Now what happens from there is, because design itself is so closely tied up to the product, a product designer or a UX designer, or whatever you want to call them, because thanks to the hats that are out there in the market, it all boils down to how much impact can you make on the overall product itself. And as a designer, you know so much about the product that there's more to it than what you actually think that there is. For example, just design, right? I've seen a lot of product designers in the capacity sort of advocating for the users, and also at the same time talking about business as well, right? How their design is going to sort of impact business. Now, to maybe start with a bit of a history behind it, I think how we've reached where we are today is, probably we all started as UI designers somewhere, right? Deep down, graphic designers and then UI designers. I think that's also how the industry has evolved to a certain extent. I don't want to generalize it, because obviously there are companies that have been doing UX for the past, I don't know, 15, 20 years that maybe we don't know of. But then trying to keep it like, still trying to give it some shape. I think we've all sort of come in from visual design or UI design, where products used to be. And now, we're in the phase where design has become much more than just visual design. It's the way, pretty much how things work, right? And it's not how the app looks, but how do you even get that app? Like, where do you download the app from? Like, the whole experience itself is the user experience, as we talk about it. So I'm not going to try and abstract UX versus UI, because that's a very, I don't know, stupid argument. But I'm going to keep it very structured this way. So when we started working on designs, we eventually reached a place where we were shipping designs, and we wanted to know that, okay, we've shipped designs, but what now? Like, where are we going? Are these designs working? And that's probably where we started looking at say metrics, right? We started looking at, are our designs successful, and how do we do that? We set up success metrics. That's something we do in different companies. In some companies, business analysts do that, or business intelligence team does that, product managers do that. So it all boils down to how the structure is in your company. But at the end of the day, you set up some kind of success metrics so that you as an individual or your team can know that that design we shipped is that even successful? Does that really
Mm.
meet the company's goals? uh, that's probably where that's probably that I think it was sort of this first step where we were intrigued that okay, now we've spent like the past 1 month, 6 months or whatever to build that design,
Mm.
and this is where we're headed. This is how we get to know that design is successful or not. And
Right.
I think that is where you as a designer start getting out of that role and start playing with something bigger.
Mm.
Now, the way that you get that say, the way that you get that value in the company is once you start looking beyond just your immediate set of responsibilities that you have as a product designer, which is to say, maybe make stuff on Figma and hand off to the developers, and then follow up that to ensure that whatever is sent to the platform, to the final, say, Google Play Store or App Store, is the exact version that you send. Right now you're talking about tracking success metrics, ensuring that okay, this is successful. Now this is probably where the next step comes in, which is you start talking to product managers and telling them that okay, this looks successful, this is what we've learned. And this is where you start interacting with all of these folks around you beyond just design, right? And when as sort of a group of individuals, they say that or they're able to see that okay, this person is participating beyond their sort of immediate role and trying to understand and get more in depth into business. That is where I think a lot of value comes in. That is where you being able to make more impact comes in. So the way that you get that say on the that say, or that seat on the table, is being able to show that value, right?
Yeah.
You do that by going beyond the design, asking the right questions, asking bigger questions than just design. If a PM comes to you, if someone comes to you, okay, we want to we want to build this feature, so you doing something as small as asking them, why do we want to build this? Like, why is it necessary? Is this something that aligns with our business goals? To going as far as trying to actually understand the goals itself, like what are the goals of our company? For example, generally companies will set OKRs
Mm.
towards the starting of the year, half yearly OKRs. And you as a designer, if you sort of understand, okay, these are the goals of the company, how can I help the company reach where they want to reach, the organization, the group, the individual, at whatever level the OKRs have been set? How do I do that? How do I bridge that gap? And when you start from there and you start building on top of it, that is how you start getting slowly into the business side of things, right? You
Yeah.
start to build your skill as an individual who also knows a lot more about the business. And it has a great impact on the kind of things that you also do, because when your PMs, when the people around you start seeing that okay, Sahil or Karan is participating in these discussions, and they're sharing their feedback beyond just design. They're talking about how should the product be, how should people actually be interacting with this product, what can we do to, for example, say, I'm just going to give you a very going to give you an example. Say my company wants to take the revenue from say 1 billion to 1.1, 1.2 billion, right? And that there are some problems that already exist in the business, right? And then you bring that expertise, your knowledge of the problems that are already there, that you feel, if I solve these problems, then this can help bridge that gap, and for us to to be able to reach that what do you say, the mark that we've set, say 1.2 billion or whatever that is. And then you're not just contributing in terms of design. I mean, obviously towards the end you will help with design, you will help with proposing solutions. That's where you start brainstorming with the team around you and get a sense of how do you do it, uh, and then finally shipping it off. But that's how I think that's the very basic of getting into that business side of things, which is just talking a little bit more, like just collaborating with your PMs, trying to reach out to them and asking them, okay, what are our goals for this year? How, what are we planning to do? And not just like straightforward taking a request from them and just designing stuff and just giving it back. So I think interaction, it's as simple as that. You start interacting more with people, which opens up the doors for you to do a lot more. So I think it might be a little vague or a little general, but I think that's where you sort of get started for someone who's not like done it at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think, Karan? I mean,
Yeah, I think on similar lines, but what I also think is that you had to understand that it will be ambiguous before it gets straightforward, because no one will tell you this is the way that you have to give your inputs in the business side of things. You will have to figure that out. You'll understand by doing, right? You can't understand by just talking to people that, okay, like we two are talking,
Hmm.
right? And if you tell them that create OKRs, create these success metrics, you'll have to learn by doing this, and it will be very, very, very ambiguous at first. So you'll have to learn how to be okay with ambiguity. That, okay, I don't know how to make an impact on business with design. You might have to try a few things. You can try out a bunch of iterations and tell them that this will help the business the most, and that's why I made this iteration in design. And that's how you kind of level up yourself. And when someone will be discussing about how do we define metrics, you will be called to that meeting, or you will be asked, okay, how can design help in this? Because people haven't seen that value till now, because it's a fairly young industry in India right now. And in companies which are fairly mature in terms of design, they have these people who are working on the design end, so they have different they have these big titles. But why these big titles are there? Because they have a say in the other aspect of things as well, like the product, the business, and so on. So you have to be very, very okay with ambiguity at first. I think that's the first step. That if you get scared at the first step, if you don't start to ask the right questions, then I think it'll get a bit hard. But if you start asking questions, you'll figure it out. That's my take on it.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And I think how do you overcome, like that ambiguity? Probably by talking to people. I think something that's helped me a lot is talking to other designers or even talking to PMs, right? For example,
Yeah.
sometimes something as simple as, okay, for example, you don't know what success metrics look like, right? You don't know
Hmm.
what success metrics to set. What you can do in that case is just sort of talk to the PM and sort of figure out that, hey, this is my first time doing this, uh, and I want to do this. This is something that I generally feel sort of interested in, and I also want to see, like, once I ship my design, how do they work, and
Yeah.
how are they going to perform. So you can ask the PM to actually help you out. You can ask them that, how do I set up success metrics? What are the
Hmm.
right success metrics I should be tracking? Like, what would make sense here? And then from there, obviously, it's a lot of experimentation. You for example, right, for me also, I think generally what we do is, whenever we're trying to solve a problem, we collaborate with the PM, and we set a bunch of success metrics from our side, and then the PM sort of looks at them, and they give their feedback on if these make sense, and they also add their own sort of probably opinion to it, and
Yeah.
share if there's something that we left out or something that maybe does not make as much sense to track. And that's where they give their feedback. So if it does become a little bit difficult initially, you can ask other designers, you can ask people in the industry, you can ask PMs themselves, or if you're in a very small company, like directly working with the co-founders or the C-suite executives, then you can just directly ask them as well. So I mean, it only starts with asking
Yeah. Yeah, I
either
think
ways.
one thing that I have started doing is just preparing a bunch of questions beforehand in the meeting. So if you have those questions, then I'm not saying that this is the ideal way, or I'm the perfect example of it, because I this is my first time working on full-fledged products. We are working with companies from Southeast Asia, and they have very set processes, and you work with them as if you are solving for the business, right? So it's also from the company, and it's also from what what you want as a designer. So I'll just give you an example. Like we mentioned that, how do we decide what is good for business? So we shipped a tool which is called Pause, right? And once we saw problems and we started solving them, and once we saw feature requests, and we just did blue sky thinking and things like that. So at a point, we thought that, okay, this is a $1 tool. So is this even worth solving, or is would our user base be affected by it if we have such a big feature which we spend 1 month on, or if we spend like so much engineering and so much design resources on? So I think thinking of business from the first day itself will really help you. That I'm thinking about how do I make it sustainable? How do I make it scale up? Or what is the cost that my product is going up at? And if it is a free product, how much user base is being affected by it? And that's how you pick up different problems to solve. Some problems will solve basic UX issues. Some problems will also solve the basic business issues, which so this is a good example that you have pro memberships in different apps like Zomato Pro, Swiggy Super, and so on. So these are from the from user problems that they face a problem and then you decide to make it into a business. So that's how it also works sometimes. So I think thinking of it from the very first day will really help you out in terms of deciding what to do when you are thinking of not just design but business and product as well,
Yep. That
right?
makes sense. Yep.
Yeah, so these are some thoughts on how to get started with thinking about it. So to just summarize it up, just think of it from the first day. Be very proactive with your conversations. Ask a bunch of questions, and then keep improving with the sort of responsibilities that you are getting. That do a little bit more each day. Don't do a lot at first, but start doing a bit more each time that you get some responsibility to just show your credibility and increase your worth as a designer and as a thinker. Basically, everyone is a thinker, but thinking in terms of business and product is something that you should be taking care of. Cool. So another question I have for you, Sahil, is that how do when you have a bunch of problems
Mhm.
that have been defined by research or you have come up with through UX audits and whatnot. So how do you define that which problems are the best to pick up for business? I know that's the PM's work as well, but as a designer, how can you contribute to what priority should be given to solving some business problems? That if I have 10 problems, how would I decide that this is a good problem to pick for the business and so on?
Got it. So, I mean, so I'm going to give you an example of GoJek,
Hmm.
so that it's a little bit more relatable. Mm, Generally, what we do is whenever a new sort of session starts, session say referring to as maybe half yearly session or a quarter, what we generally have is we have some goals around what we ideally want to do, right? Now, in terms of I think the problems itself, we generally have like a backlog of problems that these are the 5 problems we want to solve or 10 problems we want to solve. Now there are two bits to it to think of. One is the problems that really need solving because they're hampering the experience, right? Which I mean, there's just no saying that okay, we can probably keep this for later or something like that. So that is something that's definitely on the table that needs to be solved. The other kind is what sort of needs to be aligned with the stakeholders, right?
Yeah.
Now, for the first kind of problem, which I mean does not really need a say from anyone and is obvious that it needs to be solved because it's hampering the product experience and maybe even taking away revenue from the product because for example say there's something wrong in the checkout flow, right? People are not able to apply coupons or something like that, and and that's hampering the flow and people are not able to do it well because their expectation is something else and what you're giving them is something completely different or maybe something that's not usable. So ideally for that we just generally go about solving it. You do further research and try to understand okay, what are the different approaches to it. You design those different approaches, you show them to your stakeholders, you iterate on them, test them, and then ship it out and then measure them again. For the other kind, which is like more of stakeholders, I think what we generally like to do is we'll take up 2 or 3 problems that we think sort of make sense. We'll sit together with the research team, the PMs, tech leads, and then we'll try to figure out okay, from these problems, what are the problems that we can ideally pick up.
Hmm.
Generally, the discussion that goes about is on the lines of the kind of bandwidth we have, the timeline we have, and how many of these actually sort of align with business. One, second, does it sort of help us as a team sort of what do you say, reach the goal that we've set for ourselves? It might not be the company's goal but even for the team's goal. Say for example we want to build a feature and ship it. So ideally, what we in that case do is we say, now we have determined that, okay, out of these three problems, this one problem sounds good because this aligns with the business. Business wants to say increase revenue. So if we solve this problem, this is going to help us with the business. And we
Right.
get and we also then what we do is, once we've sort of picked up that problem, the next stage generally for us to do is more of an explorative research. It
Mm.
again depends on the problem itself, but we do explorative research to figure out how deep is this problem. Sometimes what you really want to know, also when you're trying to actually gauge two or three different problems, what you really
Mm.
want to understand is how many people is it impacting, right? The only way for you to do that is, so there's three things you can do. One is you just look at, if the actually there are actually two. I was thinking of revenue as well, but actually falls into data itself. So you
Yeah.
can look at data and get a sense of, if something's going down, or you can look at revenue. If you want to keep it separate, you can keep it separate. Revenue is something, if you think that's being directly impacted, that becomes another thing. The third thing generally what we do is also, which is called market sizing. So you determine how big a market for this is and how many people are being impacted by this problem.
Yeah.
Or this can again be done in maybe through things like surveys, or in general, again you can also refer to data to do this as well. So different ways to determine how big is a problem and if
Yeah.
it needs solving. Once you use any of these tools to sort of figure out, okay, this is that one problem I want to solve, then that one problem generally goes a little bit more research. It goes into that funnel where we try to understand how big is this problem exactly, like what are we talking about here, right? For example, if checkout is bad, right, how bad is the checkout, but what are our competitors doing that we are not doing, right? So that is where all this research will happen in, right? We'll try to get a landscape of uh, possible solutions, and also problems that we might actually not know of, right? The problem that we know is the surface level,
Yeah.
but we don't know what's causing it, right? What exactly is causing it?
Right.
So that is where going in depth sort of comes in. In a lot of cases, PMs, engineers are also able to, not in a lot of cases, they generally do, they're able to come up with great sort of feedback. They're able to come with great responses as well, that, this is something that's happening. And I feel, okay, maybe if we do this, this is also going to help. So collaboration ideally should start early in this process,
Mm.
because if done clearly, this is where, so I think I just saw a comment in YouTube as well. How do you, get other people to sort of collaborate with you and align on that vision?
Yeah.
When you're together working on a clear problem, right? You've defined a very clear problem. Ki, yaar, I want to increase the revenue, and this is the problem that's maybe causing that drop off. And probably based on my research, I'm pretty sure that it's causing that drop off. And you work together as a team, and then you're trying to sort of come up with solutions. Generally, that is where alignment comes from, right? What happens is, if you involve people too late, right, then they don't feel like a part of the process, right? For example, you as a PM and as a tech lead, you've done all the work, and you've finalized name, this is the problem, and I'm just gonna go to the designer and ask them, okay, bana de. So that in case is like pretty sad, right? That's where a lot of alignment issues come in, when you don't involve people early and you go too far, and then you realize, okay, we did not consult this person, and they might have actually been a very important person in that loop. So that is, I think, this one solves for that alignment and brings the team together so that they have the same level of energy to solve that problem. Then you start working on it. Then it's just the design process. You start working on it, you build something, you test it if required. Then it goes through iterations, you track it. After tracking, you see if it did it really match the expectations that we had. If yes, great, think out what can be improved. If not, still great. Figure out what is the lesson you learned, and then how do you improve. So more or less, I think the process then becomes same. But yeah, I think that is how you sort of get started. Probably that's how I think the journey should be ideally. And I mean, yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, I think this is a good point, that involve everyone early and create a very rough document on, say, a PowerPoint document or anything like that, that
Yep.
everyone can use, and keep just putting in your ideas. Don't work on refining. Just keep putting in ideas. You'll refine it eventually. There are so many people working on it. Somewhere down the line, people will understand it and they will, match your vision. So I think keeping a living document, you don't have to worry about the tool, right? People go into, अच्छा इस पे बहुत अच्छे से ट्रैक कर सकते हैं, इस पे करते हैं, बहुत कूल है ये, ठीक है, but you need to understand that you are not the only one working on this problem, that there are a bunch of other people also working. So just start somewhere. That's what I've learned. And start somewhere. You'll eventually, figure it out when you work with other people. And yeah, that's pretty much it. That we wanted to, talk about how to manage stakeholders and how to just align with everyone so that everyone knows that they are solving a good problem, not the best problem, but a problem that will impact the business through design. So yeah, that's pretty much what the last question was about. So next question I would like to ask you, and I would also like to give my thoughts on how I got started with it, is stakeholder management. I'm still struggling with it, that how much communication is too much communication and so on. So this when I joined Obvious, so we work in Obvious, we're working on product and we didn't have like PMs or other roles. Design and product was, there was a blurred line, and we had to take care of decisions. Say, if you're building out a feature, then how many people are being affected by it, like you were mentioning, and will it even justify the cost of the entire product or not? But now that we have started working with bigger clients, they have these defined roles. So now what we do is we we communicate with them every day almost, that okay, this is what we have done. Let us get on a call. And if even if we miss that call one day, the context is lost the next day. I think that happens with you also, that if you miss the communication or if you miss, just getting in touch with them, the context is lost because there's so much going on in a company, and you probably have to realign them. So just talking to them regularly, just a message or two a day, then I think that would really help in stakeholder management. What are your thoughts on it? I mean, I haven't worked at GoJek, so how does it work at GoJek?
So yeah, I think similar to what you mentioned to a certain extent. So there are these cadences. Cadences are nothing but just meetings that we do in repetition. For example, say twice a week or thrice a week. Uh, at Gojek, because there's also a bit of time difference, although it's not a lot, but there's a very slight time difference. So generally,
Mhm.
the way that we've been following so far is documentation is something that we swear by. I mean, it's something that we do actively,
Mm.
not just because of that time difference, but in general, the understanding is that there needs to be a single source of truth that logs all the decisions that were taken over a period of time, and is also, I mean, again, serves as a source of truth. So whenever you want to go and basically just see how something is done, you can just go to that document and see, okay, last year in June, this is the decision that was taken, that's why this product looks like this.
Mm.
Right, otherwise you have to go around asking in the whole office people, like, who made this. And that may be easy in smaller companies, but in a company where there's, I don't know, a couple thousand people, it becomes difficult with time, right?
Yeah.
So that is something that you have to understand. The other thing is, generally in bigger companies, projects tend to get longer, right? So say 1 month, 6 months,
Mm.
1 year, 1.5 year. By the time you reach a certain stage in that project or that product or feature you're trying to create, there are chances that people might leave, new people might join in. So this also, then the documentation or that communication that you've set in place serves as that source of truth that for people, so you don't have to repeat it again and again, right? You don't have to onboard every single new person
Mhm.
and tell them exactly the whole story from the beginning and explain to them, why did you do this, why did you do this, what was the decision that were taken. So they can just sort of go through that document, and that helps them in place. We
Yeah.
generally try to keep a lot of this async so that we don't have to communicate a lot every single day.
Yeah.
So majority of this happens offline. So what we'll do is, we'll just, for example, we made something, we just log it into the Google Doc, or you can use whatever tool of choice that you want, and then and just message the PM or whoever that, okay, this is what we've done, why don't you go through it. And then whatever feedback they have, they'll just either share it on Slack or just push it in Google Doc.
Yeah.
So I think that's where the communication comes in. Now the question for how much communication is too much communication, I don't think there's, if you're asking that, I feel like if you're asking that question, you're doing pretty good already, because you've probably reached at a stage where you're doing too much communication, and that is where you're asking. But then still, I think ideally what you should do is, the way that you should look at is, when you're trying to communicate something in general, you want whatever you're trying to say to be clear, concise, uh, to everyone, not just your close team members, but even if it's a cross team sort of. For example, you work in one small pod or one small team, and there's another small team, you should detail it out in such a format, either say verbally or in that document, that this team is able to understand. Even though they're not a part of your team, they're still able to understand every single thing, and they can also maybe give their feedback. Because a lot of times what happens in a slightly larger companies is, the feature that you make is not in isolation. The feature that you make generally has a lot of people sort of surrounding it, and what that does is, sometimes there are edge cases, there are things that you did not think of, right? But because they are the SMEs on that, the subject matter experts on that, they probably are in a better place to maybe give you a great suggestion that, why don't you do this, why don't you try this approach. I think that is where you want to at least do that much communication, and ensure at least whatever is important to the project. Now, important is again very subjective, but important in a manner that it does not really take away from the value of the document, or it does not take away from what has been done, or becomes ambiguous at a point that I'm not sure what this person did here, or why was this finally selected. You at least want to keep it clear to that level. So so people don't come back to you again and again, Karan, why Karan, why did you do this? Or why, Sahil, why did you do this? So yeah,
I had just put a link of how you should be as a product designer, or even as a teammate. So it's a great quote from Mr. Michael Scott from The Office, who says, his weakness is that he cares too much and he works too hard. So that's what you should also follow sometimes, right? So yeah, I think one following question, and then we can pick up the question in the chat. So the following question is that, say you mentioned that a project goes on for 5-6 months, then how do you put down your decisions in a document? That just give us a top line, idea of how does that happen, that okay, we have taken these decisions. How do you put that in a living document?
Interesting. So all right, I did a talk on this a while back on documentation. I think I'm just gonna rephrase some of the stuff that I said back there. So any document has, I think, 3 or 4 key parts. So the basics to start with is just the problem statement, the goal, what you ideally want to do, what are the different approaches, and probably even say if you have business goals, then what business goals does it tie to, right? And then you detail out the approaches that you've done, the designs you've done. And then the most crucial part of it is the meeting log or the decision log, right? Which probably say generally how we keep it is towards the end, so that you can keep putting things in it. It's not like it's gonna, you don't want to put it in between in places, because then it's going to become difficult to track. So the way that we do is, for example, now that I'm starting work on, say, X feature, every giving an example, every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, say for example there's a meeting, and every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I'm going to probably put like a Monday and then the date, and I'll generally bullet out all the points that were spoken about, all the feedback that was shared, and all of the inputs that were given by stakeholders, be it PMs, designers, other designers, engineers, or whoever was it, right? What that helps you to do is, you can basically track a trail of all the decisions that have been taken together in just one place, right? Ideally, you should not do it like in random places in the document, because then it might become difficult for you to track. You should keep them in one place, so you can basically, it's just like a book, right? It's just like a history, right? That you went from 1st June 2020 to 1st June 2021, and these are all the decisions that have been taken, and it's just clear, right? It's like an appendix of a book, right? So it's something like that. So ideally, that is how we do it, and it helps us a lot. What you should also, in fact, do in this case is, once you start making this appendix, you put in these decision logs. You should also obviously update your design doc as well. You're updating your design docs. For example, so right now I've made 2 versions of, I have a screen A of screen B, 2 different versions of a login screen. today is my meeting. Today is Saturday. I go and show it to my PMs. Right
Mm.
now, my PMs give me feedback in a call. Right, not offline. Sorry,
Mm.
not async, in a call. So what I'll generally do is, while they're giving me feedback, and again, these are expectations that you have to set. Generally, what we do is, while they're giving us feedback, we'll actually go and open the doc right there, and we'll type it out in front of them. Right, so that
Oh.
they know that this feedback is being written. Right,
Yeah.
and then they also know that if Sahil doesn't do it, then I'll follow up with him. Right, then
Mm.
I'll figure out, like, why was it not done, or if it was done, where is it. Right, so we'll type it down right in front of them, and we'll tell them that, okay, this is point 1, point 2, point 3, this is your feedback.
Mm.
Otherwise, also, if sometimes what happens is people leave feedback on Figma or say on Slack, then generally it's your duty to collate all this feedback and ensure that it's in one place. I mean, you don't want that half of the feedback is in Slack, half of the feedback is in Figma, and half of the feedback is in your WhatsApp messages.
Yeah.
You don't want to do that, because how do you track that? Like, if the
Mm.
PM comes tomorrow and says, I don't think we went with this decision, I'm pretty sure we went with this decision,
Mm.
what will you say? Right, I mean, obviously, if you're a good, say, rapport, you could probably
Mhm.
tell them, nahi, I'm sure that we decided this. But then still, right, I mean, if you just show the proof and you just tell them that, okay, this is what you had mentioned, and this
Mm.
is the reason why you agreed upon this, it becomes a little easy. So that's the meeting log or the decision log part of the document. I think it's very important to maintain it, because history is as important in that case as as the current. So you want to maintain that history. So whenever you feel like sharing it with anyone in your lifetime, you can share it. And the best part, which is great for all the designers, is when you're finally working on your portfolio, this
Mm.
doc is going to come save you.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I
So
think
yeah,
the last part alone will give people the motivation to do
motivation,
it.
because otherwise
They have to make up stories then. Okay,
yeah,
then
man.
why did I do this? Because I care about Earth and I care about the people around me. But if you
Yeah.
had that documentation, then you
You
know that
know.
which people you care about, not you have to make up stuff when you are, documenting your portfolio that, okay, I don't know why I did this, but must be a good reason to do it. But that good reason is not enough sometimes to just put it there.
Yeah, man. And I think memory is not something I mean, I tell this people a lot. It's not something you should rely that much on,
Hmm.
because I feel like every time you store something here and then you sort of speak about it, you're
Hmm.
always taking away some of the information.
Yeah.
And towards the end, right? I mean, once you've spoken it like 30 times to different people,
Hmm.
maybe towards the 31st time, the story is going to be like way different. Right,
Yeah.
it's just like the game of Chinese Whisper, but on a
Hmm.
very personal level, you are the one who's messing up. So I
Yeah.
think, especially when it comes to like data and like crucial information,
Hmm.
you definitely want to have it, because portfolio.
Yeah. Yeah. This is how UX is also, I can also say everyone describes what UX is differently because some it's getting trickled down from somewhere, and some people think this is what UX is, some people think this is how you should build a portfolio, and everyone has a different perspective on it. So if you have a log, then what actually is and what you are saying will make a lot of sync and will make a lot of sense as well.
Yep,
Cool.
yep, yep.
Yeah, so yeah, those are great. I mean, think answers, but there are some questions in the chat that there are a lot of questions. So I think we'll pick them up one by one. If
Where do
you
we start?
can, yeah, I think
Do you want to call them out?
Shubham, yeah, Shubham asked a question. I'll just pin it if you can. So he said that how to do stakeholder management. I think that you answered already. That just be in touch with them. Just have a common log document that you can that you can agree upon that this was what was done, right? So that's the first question that I think we have answered. Second
Sorry,
one is,
sorry, what was that again? Can you repeat that? I didn't get the last part.
no, he was mentioning that how do you do stakeholder management and is over communication good? I think we answered that.
Yeah,
The second question is that it sometimes become difficult to align stakeholders as they have their own biases. How do you tackle that? They have their own biases about product, or they have their own biases generally. that they bring into the process. So how do you eliminate that, or how do you make sure that it's minimized to the very minimum?
That's the best part. It's great to have biases and people around you with biases. I think it's only natural, man. Like everyone's like full of biases. If I ask you as product designers, do you not have biases?
Hmm.
I'm pretty sure the answer is going to be no. Is the
Hmm.
answer no?
No,
The answer is
I
not going to be no.
always have some biases.
Yeah, I think so. What you should ideally do here is try to understand why do people think. I mean, again, see, it's all about asking questions, right? If
Hmm.
someone supports an idea, there is a reason behind it. It's not that people have bias irrationally.
Yeah,
I'm sure if they are a PM, they are rational in nature, right?
yeah.
They have made that bias over a period of time. For example, say a PM works in logistics industry. Now they've
Hmm.
come to your industry, right?
Hmm.
And they do things a certain way. For example, just very vague example, but they say don't do OTP, right? Let's not do OTP. Let's do okay. Let's do OTP. Let's not do email, right?
Hmm.
The reason why they do that is their previous experience was that say for example in logistics industry there are these people on ground and truck drivers and things like that.
Ah,
They don't have email addresses or they don't have something like that, so let's just
right.
do OTP. But in your new startup, because of compliance, you can't just have OTP as your login. Maybe you also need to give, like, say for example, Google login or something like that.
Hmm.
So that's the reason why someone has bias, because there's a background story. Now what
Right.
you need to do as a good designer or as a good human is you need to understand where are they coming from. Why do they have that bias? If
Right.
and if you're I think if you're able to understand that, then one, you can build great rapport because you actually care, you actually
Hmm.
want to know the story of that individual, and you're trying to ask so that you can maybe even figure out a better way to solve for it.
Yeah.
And I think that's what, you know in all its sort of actuality, that's what people want. People just want to see, if you suggest something, why do you suggest that?
Yeah.
More than the solution itself, which is also true for interviews and case studies. More than the solution or outcome, people want to see how did you reach there and why.
Right.
Right? Why a certain way? So yeah, I mean, if someone has a bias, just talk to them, just figure out like why do they think it's going to work, and tell them why you think something else is going to work. And do what every designer does, have an ugly version and have a cool version of the design, and just show it to them. Just tell them that, okay, based on what you say, this is how it is and this is how it is. If
Yeah.
required, do a UT, if a usability test, that is.
Mhm.
Do a UT and figure out that, and maybe your PM was right. You never know.
Yeah.
But yeah, what do you
Yeah.
think, Karan? I mean,
Yeah, I think no one is free of biases.
yeah.
It's one of the things that, so what you can also do is you can just talk to them about something else. Sometimes that also, when you have a good rapport with them, they feel okay telling you about some things that they might not tell to other people. Right? That, okay, this is my bias. I'm being very open to you. So creating a safe space is quite important. That if I don't feel that you will understand what I'm trying to say, you will not tell me. I will not tell you those things.
Yep,
Right?
yep.
So if I feel comfortable, then I will try to rationalize with you. Disagreement is okay, but rationalizing is better. That why do you know, why do you think this is? And I mean, no one, everyone is getting paid to ask tough questions, so might as well ask a few questions to your other stakeholders. So if you don't ask those tough questions, then you'll only be, you know, you'll just be contributing to a Figma file. I don't know how many of us want to just do that. So if you want to contribute to a Figma file and not ask tough questions, then go ahead. But if you want to, understand how other things work, then ask a few hard-hitting questions, or just try to understand, because people are really open to, change and uh, learning. If they're not, then probably it's not, might be you need someone else to talk to them. But if it's a good manager, if it's a good designer that you have a good rapport with, then chances are they might come on board with you and try to understand where you are also coming from.
Yeah. And that's how you also get the gossip from the
Yeah.
people. And
Huh.
you know what? One thing that I've really learned along the way is,
Hmm.
in a lot of cases, the biases retain because no one asks questions. In a
Yeah.
lot of cases, sometimes when you just ask a question, then the person thinks कि आज तक तो मुझसे किसी ने पूछा ही नहीं. No one's
हाँ,
asked this to me till date.
ये तो
And
लेटेस्ट न्यूज़
and
है.
हाँ, and then and then they start thinking that, have I been wrong all along?
हाँ,
Is my life a lie? And then they
yeah.
go into that rabbit hole, and then they sort of then they start, and then half of your job is already done. Then they will try to rationalize with themselves and figure out that, okay, maybe I was doing this wrong because I was doing this in the context of my previous work, previous
Hmm.
organization, or with a previous set of constraints that I had.
Yeah.
And from there, it's just, I mean, yeah, you just talk.
Hmm.
Just,
Yeah, वो don't give them a feeling of that क्या इतना बुरा हूँ मैं माँ, but ऐसा नहीं feel कराना, but just ask them some questions that might help them also realign, because sometimes you might have better context on things just by
Yep.
the virtue of being in the industry for longer or working on the product for longer,
Yeah.
right? Great. So next question is by Divyanshu. Is asking that what is your thought on business having an upper hand and hence sometimes degrading the usability or quality of the product?
Interesting. So that's a great question, and I think this is something that's very common, and it's also in a lot of cases it's actually very difficult to change things, right? There are some companies that are fundamentally set in a way that business is the centerpiece.
Hmm.
There are companies that are set in a way that design is a centerpiece, which is
Hmm.
non-existent. But yeah, there are some companies in which product management is a centerpiece, or for example, I don't know, some other functions are centerpiece, right?
Hmm.
So it's fundamentally very difficult to change the perception of those companies. I would not say it's anything like a short term goal.
Hmm.
It's only something that you can achieve over a period of time when you show value as an individual. Again,
Hmm.
going back to the very roots. So you need to sort of figure out, how do you do that, right? uh, I'll tell you, there's this great story. I read this in this book. It's from HBR, Harvard Business Review. It's called
Hmm.
Managing Yourself, the name of the
Okay.
book. Of this person who this is from the Lufthansa, if you know the flight Lufthansa carrier.
Yeah.
So there was this person who wanted to build a school of excellence from Lufthansa, a
Hmm.
college. And obviously, why would a flight company try to build something like that, right? So what that guy did was he set up a he knew that, okay, this is not something that will happen like overnight or
Yeah.
maybe even in a year. So what he did was, after joining, he started working on the surrounding things, right? He started to talk to people, tell them his vision, and do a lot of things on the sides, like figure out who would be the right people. If I was to build a school, who would be the right people? Then figure out the right resources.
Hmm.
And that story follows, as such that, it takes them like 5 or 6 years, and then there's this opportunity that comes in, right? That their
Hmm.
competitor at that same point of time is trying to build something around this, right? So they
Yeah.
can educate their leaders and the next generation to become like very sort of empowered people in the industry, right?
Hmm.
And because this guy has done all the research already, he just gets a go ahead. And this guy, I think, is an HR. He is the
Oh.
head of human resources. So not like like the head of human resources. So obviously he does have some say, but then again, he's a head of human resources. It's not
Hmm.
like it's not the business team or something like that, right? So
Hmm.
uh, and then he is able to sort of build that up. So
Hmm.
the story, so the moral of the story is, there are certain things that will not happen overnight. You need to put in a lot of effort to do that.
Hmm.
And sometimes you alone will not be enough to do that.
Hmm.
So what you need to do is tell your vision to other people around you,
Yeah.
so that that vision propagates through all these people, and everyone then sings that song that you want them to sing in unison.
Hmm.
And people say कि नहीं यार, this guy is doing great work, or this function as a whole has contributed so much to our company. We should give more power to this function.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that's how I feel about it.
Right. That's great. And one thing I've also noticed is that when we are working in design, we think design is the centerpiece, but it's not, right? So coming to terms with that fact also is something that a lot of people should do, that coming to fact with the thing that this is not how things have worked in this company, or this is not a very, it's good at design, but it's not a design focused company per se, right? Because if you look at everyone disses on Amazon, right? Amazon ka website, Amazon ka app, but it works, right? So design, because it works, it might not be at the centerpiece. Something else might take the center seat. But if it just works, then I think design can also, you know, navigate or, penetrate into other functions.
Yep, yep.
And something that I have, had trouble with also is thinking that design is everything, but it's not. There are a lot of other functions that go in to make a product successful, and design is just a part of it. So even if you don't get what you want initially, then probably it might take time. You're not wrong, you're just early in the process, is what I saw this somewhere. It's a quote. I don't know where I saw it, but that's what you can take as a suggestion, that it might not be that design is of the highest priority to the company, and that works sometimes.
Yeah, and I think it's a ladder, right? It's a
Hmm.
uh, ladder of maturity, right? Even for example, say the biggest companies. Just take an example of Indian startups like Swiggy, like
Hmm.
Flipkart, and all those. They've had their phase, right? They've had a phase to go through.
Hmm.
From where you're setting the very basic things first. You're trying to ensure basic things are done well first,
Hmm.
right? And in basic things, sometimes design is not the one. When I say basic, I literally mean like operational level stuff, right?
Yeah.
When even the sometimes maybe the company does not exist yet, it's not even registered, so they're
Hmm.
trying to build the very basics, they're trying to lay out the foundation,
Hmm.
and then they start doing. And every founder or every product owner has a very different approach. For
Yeah.
people, I personally know a lot of people who, because they've been in touch with say designers, so
Hmm.
when they started their their own venture,
Hmm.
probably the fourth or the fifth employee they hired was at least one designer, right?
Yeah.
And then they started from there. And I also know people who have like a company of 1,200 people, and there's one designer on contract. So
Yeah.
because they because they don't because sometimes they don't care about all that much. And
Huh.
there are different ways. For example, say you can utilize, there are such good, like uh, what do you say, things like bootstrap sort of systems and themes and all those things in place. In a lot of cases, if a PM has an understanding of how at least fundamentally a product should work,
Hmm.
in a lot of cases they actually don't need design, like
Yeah.
at least, I mean, it's okay. Sometimes you have to agree with this, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes they don't need it. And as the product scales, probably that requirement then sort of starts surfacing.
Pops
Then
up.
yeah, then they feel that okay, we've now maxed out of all the resources we had. Now we can no longer work with this sketch file that we found on Drivel.
Yeah.
So then they
And
have to actually get someone. Yeah,
right. And design system.
yeah, and design system. Yeah.
So yeah, I think just getting in terms with the fact that you are just a part of a bigger thing and not the entire thing. So yeah, that takes some time, but will really help you in the long run.
Yeah, you should read this book called Ego is Your Enemy, if that's a
Oh,
problem you face.
okay, okay. Yeah, a lot
Yeah.
of book recommendations here. Cool. There's another question. It's by Jivanshu. He's just asking for some resources that he can refer to develop business plus product thinking and to get more familiar with product and design strategies. It's a very heavy question, so any
Oh,
light recommendations there, if you have any?
it's great. So there's actually a bunch of great books by Intercom.
Okay.
I'll get in touch with I should get in touch with Karan later and share those
Yeah.
links. But there's some great, really great books by Intercom that
Hmm.
they're free of cost. They're just there in public domain. You can download them
Hmm.
on product management and things like that in general,
Hmm.
on prioritization and different matrices that are used to prioritize things. And also in general, I think if you want to talk about strategy, right, or things like that, you can actually read books from HBR. I mean, I've been reading HBR books for a while now, and I think they're very good because
Hmm.
the essays that are there in them. So those books are basically nothing but a collection of essays, right? That
Hmm.
people have written over the past tens to hundreds of years. That's how old those essays are. And
Yeah.
they're very well written books. So there's generally these topics. For example, the one that I was reading a while back was called Managing Yourself.
Hmm.
Then there's more books which follow different themes. So you can find I think there's one on product management, there's one on communication.
Mm.
So it's basically like a book set. You can read them online as well. I mean, you can get the ebooks online. You know where to
Right.
find and how to find ebooks.
Mhm.
Yeah. So yeah, I think and I'll leave some personal recommendations that I live by. I'll probably put them after this call. Yeah.
Cool, cool. Got it. Yeah, another, I think this is the last question that we have, and it's why Akshay is asking that do you think that design appeals more to Gen Z and why a lot of new startups are also focusing on design side of things? Any views?
I think it's not just Gen Z, but it's just the maturity curve, right?
Yeah,
In general, like the design industry in India is now evolving,
yeah,
not because of Gen Z, but because they've done the grunt work in the past 10, 20 years.
yeah.
There have been so many engineers that they've finally been able to make, like, the engineering has now reached that stage that now they can focus on other things, which is
Hmm.
design, which is more things beyond design. So for example, in design also there is a stage, right? For example, you'll see people hiring the first set of designers, right?
Hmm.
But people are not necessarily investing in motion design,
Yeah,
right? You probably have heard about motion design. How many of you have heard about design ops,
yeah.
right?
It's
I
a
I don't.
upcoming field.
Yeah, exactly. Design ops is something that's, I mean, even rare. People don't know what design ops is. Like, what is someone in design ops supposed to do? Is it just an operational role, or are there actually designers? So we at GoJek, we have a design ops team which generally
Yeah.
takes care of setting up processes, setting up systems, and ensuring that, for example, every designer knows what to do, how to do things. How do you go about communication? So basically their job is to ensure that the collaboration across teams is happening, like, smoothly,
Yeah.
and setting up systems that help designers grow,
Hmm.
perform, and do their work well, basically. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's just a curve. But yeah, I mean, I think Gen Z, I don't know, man. Does Gen Z have time for good products? Aren't they just all on TikTok?
Yeah. I think there's a great point that you mentioned that a lot of new fields are also coming up. So I interviewed for this particular role at Urban Company. They were setting up a design ops team because they had, they were at a point where they needed pe dedicated people to set processes, maintain design systems, and whatnot. So it
Yeah.
usually happens at a later stage. So if you want these very mature roles, then you should look at these bigger companies. Yeah, I think I missed one question, and
Tanvi,
yeah, I have pinned that. You can look at it.
I'm already in a position where my daily decision making cannot happen without looking at
Mhm.
business metrics. For switching over to product design, what are your tips on what I should bring along? So, are you a product designer that's looking into business metrics, or are you a PM that's looking into business metrics and then you're trying to switch into product design?
I think her
Right.
day-to-day work involves a lot of business-related activities, and then yeah, I mean she's not a product designer. That's something that I know,
Okay, okay.
right? So how can she bring that experience to product design? That's what I think she's asking.
You just bring it. No, I mean, I think your sort of understanding of how the numbers work is probably the torch here that's going to differentiate you probably from other designers.
Yeah.
The way that, for example, I use my understanding of whatever I've been able to build so far, of how I gauge numbers, and am able to make sense out of those, is I generally start problems with a number or my understanding of how system is working, where is it failing, and then from there on, again,
Hmm.
this is more of data driven versus data aware question.
Data
But if
informed.
you but if you have, if you have the data to be actually, you have so much data, and it's so much in depth that you're actually able to drive things through
Mhm.
with that data. I think it's a great start, especially if you are in a company that already has access to data. I mean, if you can already do that, I think
Mm.
when you switch to product design, or if you're trying to make the transition to product design, you
Mhm.
can use that skill to make informed decisions, and you'll also be in a place that you'll be easily able to collaborate with the PM, right? Because
Yeah.
PMs would also talk about, in terms of business goals and data only, right? That, okay, these are the things we need to do. We're looking out for this data. We want to change this metric and we want to, for example, increase or decrease this number or whatever, whatever that is. And I think that is where this is going to come in. And product designer, being product designer, you build solutions using what your understanding of data is. And I think eventually it's actually the opposite for other people, right? As product designers, we want to go there where we want to know more about data, and we want to actually understand that, okay, I know how to do Figma, but how do I step out? So I think for us, for most of us, it's the opposite, where we then need to look outwards, start talking to other people to get that sense for numbers, sense for business. So yeah, does that answer?
Yeah, I think it does, but there are also a lot of hybrid roles as well that are at the conjunction of product design and business person.
So she says she's a client success manager trying to switch over to product design. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, I think you stay with your numbers game. I think that's pretty strong. And once you make the transition, you trying to when you start working on designs, just don't forget that bit of it. Try to use those numbers and your understanding of those things as much as you can to back up your day-to-day decisions whenever you're talking to a PM, and whenever you're showing them that, okay, this design is the one I selected, or this is the one I selected. And if you bring those numbers with you, right, you tell them that, okay, this is the reason why, because this is how I understand what the problem is, versus maybe what looks like the problem is. And I think that gives you that upper hand that the PM will be more confident in talking to you because they understand that you already understand these things well. So that's going to give you that head start, I think. So yeah, it's actually great for you.
If you also develop these product skills, then you can also go into a managerial role or a hybrid role quicker than other people.
Yep. Also, one thing to probably not remember is you can read all the books in the world you want, but unless and until you actually do it, you just cannot do anything, right? Trust me, you can read 1,000 books about how to write, but if you don't write, you cannot write. It's just, that's how. So you should start from somewhere. Keep it very low commitment, like just bare bones. Start from just asking questions that we started from the very first thing. Start from asking questions, then figure out like where can I go from there. So yeah, we have more.
Right, got it. Questions. Cool. I think those were all the questions. One question that has been popping up is, what is the future of Creative Hustle? Okay. You can't ignore that for long.
No, I don't want to. Yeah, man, I don't want to ignore that. I'm actually working on a script right now for doing some research for a video that I've been planning to do. So to be very transparent here, I think when I started, the idea was pretty simple, that I wanted to do videos. It's actually there in that update, right? Update 1.0, very elaborate video. It talks about what I really want to do, after which there's not been any video. I think since then it's just been a little difficult to manage time because of the pandemic. The work has been slightly increased, and honestly, I'm trying to be a little bit more mindful about things that I personally also want to do, things that I want to give my time to. But yes, this is something that's on my what do you say? What's my prioritization matrix? In the past, I think 5 or 6 months or so, I've actually been trying to help a couple of my friends trying to get into product design. So I wanted to do that by all my what do you say?
Heart.
All my heart, because I think that would also help me understand the pains of a lot of new designers, because when I learned design versus now when people are learning design, things have changed significantly, right? And I wanted to get an understanding from their perspective that, okay, these are the problems that people are facing now. For example, one problem that I used to face was there was just not enough resources for you to learn design 6 years back. But the problem now is there's just way too many resources for you to learn design. So what do you do? Where do you start? So I think that's a bigger problem, right? Because the overload of content is more troublesome than when the content is just not there. So I think that is something which is slightly better, at least, but then it also still becomes a point where you start struggling. So now that I'm, I think, in a better position, and that interaction that I had with trying to guide my friends is coming to a close, and I think they would be moving in their career as well, like the
Mm.
first step of their career. So I think now I'll have a little bit more time and a bit more yeah, energy to start making those videos. And yeah, I'm already working on my first videos. So
Great.
first video. So if you have any ideas, like in general, you want to like really want to know about, message me on Insta, or just leave a comment on one of my videos, old videos. That also
Yeah.
works.
Also, what I have also noticed is that I start with an idea, then I learn more about it. Then I think I will not be able to do it in 12, 15 minutes. This is a big problem that when I started making these Figma videos, I didn't know a lot. So I used to make videos of whatever little I knew. Now I know a bit of different things there. Now I think when I start writing things down, and after a week, those things increase. That
Oh,
if I
interesting.
start with 5 things, that these are some things I want to talk about, then by the end of third week, those become 10 things. And that cannot be covered in a 15-minute video. That's been my biggest challenge with, just putting videos out there. Because when I learn more, I think that I shouldn't make a video on it because there's so much that I'd be missing by just creating a 15-minute video.
Yeah. I think for me, the problem is more to do with the fact that when I make a video, I want to be as accurate as I can.
Hmm.
Uh, it's very difficult, honestly, for content creators. You make slightest of the mistake and you get made fun of like everywhere. I mean, it's not something that scares me. It's okay.
Hmm.
The idea for me has always been to share whatever I know. I'm
Hmm.
not trying to portray myself as the expert in anything at all.
Yeah.
I'm just here to share my experience. That's it. So
Hmm.
whatever I've shared today as well is my experience.
Yeah.
It's not written in the Bible, right?
Hmm.
It's just what I've learned has worked for me so far. So I mean, I think, but then still, it comes with a bit of responsibility, right? So that's where sort of research and all that comes in. So generally, I try to take a little bit more time to do that, and then
Right.
trying to not sacrifice on the quality of the videos and those things. So everything just sort of piles down together, and it becomes a mountain. And then I'm trying to clean it up. So yeah.
Right. Cool. Yeah, that this was helpful, man. I think this has gone on for about 1 hour 15 minutes. So really helpful. And one small announcement before we leave. I'm planning to do a Figma session next time. So if you have any suggestions, and if a Figma session and a Friends of Figma session as well on say whiteboarding or something similar. So if you have any suggestions for that, please reach out to me. The links are in the description as always. And after that, yeah, just stay in touch, everyone. Just we'll keep doing this. I'll try to keep coming back with different people. If you have any recommendations of who I should bring next, then let me know. And yeah, finally, thank you so much, Sahil, for being a part. This was, I don't know how you felt, but I think it went good. It went well for the
Awesome.
first time. So yeah, thank you so much for doing this. I'm really thankful and really grateful for this.
Thanks, bro. This is great. I think it happened really well, and really happy to, I mean, obviously, be a
Mhm.
part of this, be able to share whatever few things I know. And yeah, man, thanks for bringing me back on YouTube. So,
Yeah, I launched you again. I think
thanks
I
for launching me. Thanks for
Karan Johar. I should change my
yeah,
name to Karan Johar
yeah,
now.
coffee. Like actually, coffee with Karan.
I got a suggestion that I should change the name of these talks to I think something on similar lines.
Yeah, right. I mean, it would make so much more sense, man. Use
Huh.
that.
So I don't know. Someone suggested me. I'll go back to them and ask what they suggested. So
That's crazy. That's
uh,
Karan Johar finally needs some competition. So
yeah, I'll be launching
yeah,
new people.
yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, man.
Yeah,
This was great.
thank you.
And
Yeah,
yeah, see everyone soon. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining in. I'll see you in a bit. And yeah, good night. Have a great Sunday and the rest of the week ahead. Thank you.
thanks everyone.
Bye.
Bye bye.